So Dave finally dropped his fourth, I believe, project, third studio album, something like that. I think it's like his fourth or his fifth project, something along those lines. But I want to go through some of my predictions for this album and also some of the reactions that I saw people had to the tracklist reveal when he announced the release date for this project. This isn't going to be a super edited video. It's like 11 o'clock on Thursday night. In my mind, it was dropping tomorrow because it's October 24th, but I forgot that the US is like 4 or 5 hours behind the UK, so kind of tripped me up. I just want to get through some of this, but before that, here are the top 5 songs that I've been listening to for the past couple days.
She always do too much in with her drama. How the fuck I fell in love with Guyana? One thing they never could say is that they made me. And put my trust in these niggas that disobeyed me.
And I be yelling out gang gang. Do you gang bang? I be outside with my gang gang. Chunk your gang signs if you gang bang.
She been breaking hearts like Jackie Chan. I keep breaking bricks like Jackie, with a blade in hand like Chucky. Understand?
Thinking I can write this many songs about a lady when I haven't met her, but she only hit it on
Crossover Media.
So the first 3 here are going to be a little bit more playful, and the last 2 are going to lean more into the commentary that I have for the second half of this episode. But I also actually spoiled the very first prediction when I went to go check if I can listen to the album already, and that's that there are 2 or more songs that are 6 or more minutes long. It just kind of fits his MO at this point. He's done that in the last couple albums, last couple projects where he has those songs where he kind of just dives a little bit deeper into certain topics, even letting the beat end and just keep going and going and going. Wouldn't be surprised if he does that here as well. So maybe that'll be like prediction 1.5 or something. But I think it works for Dave. I feel like he's one of the only artists that can have enough to say for that amount of time and not bore you and really actually keep you captivated. I think in those longer songs, I don't even realize how much time has passed, more time, because Dave just has this ability to just kind of really keep you immersed into what he's saying, because it really just always feels so real and you actually want to pay attention to what he's saying. So I'm looking forward to hearing exactly what those songs are going to sound like, and that also then leads into my second prediction. I have to look at the screens. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Oh yeah, that at least 3 of those verses are going to start with look. Like I said, these first ones are going to be a little more playful. I mean, it's kind of just his signature, but it also kind of signifies when Dave is about to say something like really real stuff. So if he does do that exactly 3 or more times, that's going to be kind of fun. The next prediction here, he's going to reference or remix a line from previous songs. So I'm not going to hold you. People get on me when I'm doing reactions, talking about, oh, I don't catch bars or whatever, just because I don't always jump out of my seat for every little thing that somebody says. But I will say, in Dave's project, and even Jay Huss's project as well, and Central C does this too, where like they reference things that they've said before, like remix certain lines. I did not catch that. I believe it was in Heart Attack, so I hadn't heard Panic Attack recently at the time when I reacted to We're All Alone in This Together, so I didn't realize that Heart Attack was basically like a continuation to Panic Attack, I guess, and it's having like references, like there was the Javelin bar that I didn't realize was a reference to Panic Attack.
I bet them boys think I'm panicking. Pep Guardiola, G, I'm managing. I bet them boys think I'm panicking, itching to see how I handle it. I bet them boys think I'm panicking. Check what my young G's are carrying. It's blade same length as a javelin.
Like, I didn't realize it until I kind of went into a deep dive on Dave's discography after listening to We're All Alone in This Together. So I'm probably gonna try to actually listen to every single Dave project and as many of his songs as possible before listening to the album, so that way I can kind of at least try to catch some more of those moments. But I wouldn't be surprised if Dave does that. I think it's one of those like kind of nods to the people who have been listening to him long enough. I always enjoy that, and I think like low-key, like there are American rappers that I guess have like signature things, but at least one of the things that made UK music so unique to me when I first started listening to it was like recognizing, especially in grime, how artists can have like that thing that they say or like that thing that they remix, and you don't get tired of it because it becomes like their signature. So I can't think of that many American artists on the top of my head that do that. I'm sure there's probably somebody. Y'all let me know in the comments. But I love that about grime culture, like how somebody can say something and you already know what the follow-up is going to be. So hearing how UK rappers have kind of maybe not done that on purpose, but kind of adapted that culture from grime and have those lines and those moments that are like direct references to things that they said in the past. T-Way, obviously with the retail work. J Hus did that a couple times, and Baby, I actually said that in my comparison to Baby and Big Conspiracy, that there were a lot of moments in that album that I didn't even catch myself, I'm not even gonna lie, that were direct interpolations and references and continuations to previous projects. And I don't think I saw anybody really talk about that. Maybe other people caught it and just didn't feel the need to point it out because they just recognized it. But when I realized that's what J House was doing, I was like, all right, that's kind of dope. But yeah, I'm expecting Nate to do that. Maybe in the birthday song. I don't know. But I'm definitely excited to hear the direction that he takes this project. And if he either stays true to the things that we can expect or diverts from it, which is also a really big part of what the rest of this video is going to be about. But my next prediction here is that he is going to have a variety of sounds. Just looking at the track list, and I think that's where a lot of people's kind of complaints and gripes came from with this track list. It didn't really feel Dave like at a surface level. If you kind of take like an extremely like one-dimensional approach to Dave and his music, you look at that track list and you're just like, I mean, yeah, it makes sense, but you know, I know that he has bigged up Jim Legacy. I was surprised that people were like confused by the James Blake collab, because he definitely had a collab on We're All Alone This Together with him. Granted, I don't listen to James Blake. That was like my only time ever listening to him was that album. So when I saw him on this one, I was like, all right, cool, yeah, that makes sense. So seeing people kind of react to that this time around, it's kind of strange, but whatever. But all these other artists, I think that it's going to be interesting to hear how he meshes with them. I'm not familiar with that many of them. I don't have the track list to look at it right now, but I do remember, like, aside from Jim Legacy, whose name I recognize, but whose music I haven't listened to, James Blake, who I recognize his name, but I don't listen to his music either, but he was on the previous project. I think the only other person that I remember, oh, and obviously Kano. I remember Kano being on there. That was a big moment for some people. But Thames as well. I know Potter Paper kind of like teased that he was on the project in the comments, and a lot of people were really excited about that. It really kind of makes you wonder what a Potter and Dave song would sound like. I might experiment with that and see what that could sound like. That would be interesting. It would be cool if he has like in the fire moment where he has some features that slip through the cracks, and like the initial track list was just to kind of get people excited. But I thought that he did that, but it would be cool if he did kind of have some other features here that just aren't immediately visible. But yeah, Dave and Potter would be interesting. I think looking at the track list though, a Potter feature might have taken this one a little bit farther out of the element that it seems like Dave is trying to go, especially with the title of this project. I don't know what he's getting at with it, but I think somebody had said somewhere, I think on Instagram, that it might be like a Bible reference. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to hearing exactly what Dave does here. And I do think that with these like really diverse ranges of artists, that it's going to be a very diverse range of sounds as well on this project. I think that he's probably going to try to explore his ability to express himself on different kinds of beats. It's either that or he's gonna do what Dave does and bring these artists into his element. It's really gonna be one or the other. So, but I think he's probably gonna lean a little bit more towards complementing the other artists, so that way the project has a more dynamic kind of sound to it. But other than that, like I think it's good that he's exploring and expanding beyond just like the typical kind of feature list that we would expect. But I'm going to get into that in the second half. And then my last prediction here is that he's going to be steering away from the mental health angle that he's had on the last two projects. I mean, obviously more so with psychodrama. This is something that Frank and I have spoken about, like off the record, like off camera. He was saying he hopes that when Dave does his next project, that he is able to steer away from the mental health, like trauma dumping kind of approach. Not because it isn't good, because obviously like that's what Dave really does so well, but just because Frank and I were just kind of wondering, like, what else can Dave do? Like, what else can he express? Now that he's in a slightly different place in his life, like, what else does he have to say and share with us? And that's why I think that this track list is really interesting, because it's going to make me, well, it makes me kind of wonder, like, how does Dave and Kano, like, sound together? Like, is it going to be a grime track? Is it going to be, like, a modern hip-hop track that Kano just kind of finds his way on? Like, I'm really, really excited to hear what that's going to sound like. And then, like, he already did the Afrobeat thing. Obviously, he has the song with Burna Boy, Location, big song. He had, like, that section in his last album as well that proved that he can do that sound. And it wasn't just, like, a one-off with Location. So I want to hear what Dave sounds like on different kinds of rhythms. 'Cause I think it's going to allow us to get more dimensions, again, to his personality. I think people are just so accustomed to the dimensions that we've already gotten that that's probably why they kind of was startled by this track list. But I do hope that he is able to maybe even give some more of those insights into his mind, but not just from, like I said, the straight, just, I don't want to say trauma dump. I don't mean that in like a disrespectful way, but I think that when Dave kind of jumps on certain kinds of tracks, he's just letting it all loose. Like the music becomes a therapy session is obviously more intentional and more direct in the theme of psychodrama. And we're all alone in this together. It feels like he was still kind of keeping a little bit and continuing a little bit of that angle, just without overtly referencing therapy like directly. So if he's able to keep that essence of allowing us to get those glimpses into his mind, into his experience, understanding how he feels, but without it feeling too, I don't want to say heavy, because at the end of the day, like, that's what his experience is. It is what it is. Like, I don't want him to downplay how he's feeling, but if he's able to tap into those other ways of expressing, that's the only way that I can kind of articulate it in my head right now, like on the fly. I don't have a script for this like I normally do. Then I think it's going to make for a project that some people may not love, but I think that it will be an important and necessary and memorable addition to Dave's catalog. Kind of how I feel about Beautiful and Brutal Yard as well. That's one of the things that I said in my comparison to Big Conspiracy, that sometimes you need those projects where you deviate from your usual formula, or you give people what they don't expect, because I think that's where artists show a little bit more of who they actually are, instead of trying to uphold like a caricature or maintain a brand that may not really just fully resonate with who they are anymore. With 10 tracks, I think that it's going to be one of those kind of projects that you're going to be able to constantly have or repeat. You're going to find those songs that you love, obviously, but I suspect it might be one of those where you can listen to it in its totality, but you can also maybe just be like, all right, I'm a Dave fan. I like when Dave does this, I like when he does this, I don't like when he does this, and you can kind of throw away some of those tracks. Like, I wasn't really crazy about Both Sides of a Smile, but I understood it within the context of we're all alone in this together. It isn't the kind of song that I would go out of my way to play like as a one-off track, but when it plays when I'm listening to the whole album, I feel the need to actually enjoy and take in what he's saying there. And that's also why like album arrangement is so important to me, and like how you place the tracks in your track list. That's so important. I think that especially in the UK, I critique that a lot. It's usually like my main critique of any album that I've reviewed for the past couple years while I've been doing this thing on YouTube, is that certain projects can really be elevated so much further if artists kind of put a little bit more thought and intention behind their track list. So we'll see if he does that here. But with a 10-track album, you may not even really need it like that for real. So we'll see if it ends up being one of those like kind of spotty, pick what you like, or if he does have like moments in the first and second album where he has kind of dialogues in the middle that conceptually tie it all together. Because of the title, I think that alone might kind of lean into my, or it might confirm my suspicion that it's probably not going to be super, super, super rap heavy. He probably is going to be tapping into the more melodic kind of side of things. Obviously, probably still having one or two like rappy moments in there because that's what the fans want. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a more melodic kind of project. And with that, being able to kind of talk about things in a slightly more upbeat, maybe still maintain that introspection. I don't think we're ever going to lose that from Dave, but maybe, again, it's delivered from a slightly different angle. One of the reasons why I think that it's so important for artists to be able to deviate is so that each project can kind of have its own identity too. That's another thing that I talk about a lot. For those of you who don't know, like my master's degree background is in branding, so I think about these things a lot deeper than most people do, and I think that's probably why a lot of people get kind of aggravated because they just want to see me bob my head and point out bars. But no, I'm thinking about this art from a completely different angle, because when it comes to creativity, there's what you get in terms of what you consume, but then there's the packaging. And the packaging part is the part that I tend to care the most about. Like, that's the reason why I call out flows and like whether or not beats are cohesive with songs, because how the thing is packaged also affects how you receive the other things. So for me, like the way that I receive an album is also partly contingent upon, okay, I know the title of this, I'm listening to the songs, what do these songs have to do with this title? What do these songs have to do with the visual that I'm getting? So like that stuff matters to me because I'm going into the project with that context in the back of my mind. So I like when artists are able to have projects that have an identity and mean something as a whole and not just like the individual songs. So I'll give you an example, like Stormzy's last album. If you're a Stormzy fan or even a casual Stormzy listener, it's probably not your favorite project. But I think that project was so necessary because it stamped a particular point in Stormzy's life in terms of the breakup of Maya Jamo and then getting back with her and all of that. Like, that to me gives that project an identity that exists beyond the individual songs. And it gives a context for each of those songs to also exist within, outside of just like enjoying what each individual track and the lines and the music. Like, what that's saying and what that's doing for you from an art standpoint, sure. But then, like, what does it mean beyond just that individual song? So when I think about a project like We're All Alone in This Together, like the long-awaited sophomore album, like that means something. That has a context beyond just being good songs. The album art with the boat and then all the different songs talking about the immigrant experience, all of those things hold a larger context, or they're held together by a larger context. Psychodrama, the whole thing being tied together to the therapy thing. Like, psychodrama in and of itself ties in, like just the word, and then the song Psycho, everything means something. Like, this is Dave's breakthrough project where he's showing people that yes, he's here to stay and he's a seriously talented musician, but also he has these other layers that we get a chance to peel through. I feel like I started listening to Dave, or really tapping into Dave, after the come up, so I don't really know if that was an angle that he introduced us to. I know his Black Box, obviously heavy, because that was before the fame, so a lot of those topics were a lot more like pervasive and prevalent at that point in his life. So obviously now he's in a different place in his life. So I would imagine that maybe the first couple songs that he dropped really did lean into the mental health. Then I'm just saying trauma dumping because it's the easiest way for me to describe it, but like the trauma dumping or whatever. So yeah, I like the fact that each project in certain artists' discographies have a story beyond the individual songs, right? The story of the project. Big Conspiracy being that project that J Hush just dropped out of nowhere with 2 songs that had no music video and it leaked. Like, there's a story beyond the individual songs. So whether or not this is an angle, or whether or not Dave takes an angle with this project that people want and expect from him, I think that is also going to give it a story and a context that's going to mean something. And it's going to be, that album that you either love it or hate it as a Dave fan. I think even people feel that way about We're All Alone in This Together. Like, people went into that expecting a Psychodrama Part 2, and it wasn't. I want this project to be something that deviates because it reflects a different dimension of Dave. But even with that being said, I'm also happy that there are still features on this project because it's also going to complement him too. Like, when you have other voices, other styles, other flows, it just brings an element that like you just can't get obviously by yourself. There are very few artists that can make a song where when it's just them, the whole project still feels like it's them featuring them. I'm not sure if Dave is really one of those kind of artists yet, or if he's an artist that he can do a completely solo album and it's gonna feel completely fresh with just him on every single track. Like, somebody like J. Cole kind of comes to mind when I think about that. Like, J. Cole has projects where it's just him. Is he a project? Is it one project? I know 2014 Forest Hills Drive is just him. And I love that project because all the songs, like, they're just dope. Then you have like For Your Eyes Only, for example, where when that project plays, to me, it's like I blink and it ends. I'm just like, oh wait, the song changed? Like, 'cause it all kind of feels really monotonous to me. But even though I'm sure it actually isn't, but it just feels that way. Every time I listen to it, that's just the feeling that I get at the end of it. Like, I didn't even realize that the song changed. So having features brings these different dynamics to it that make a project just not just monotone. So I am looking forward to that with this as well. There was a reason why I said, that's supposed to be the segue. Here are my top 5 Dave collabs, songs that were him featuring another artist, and then we're gonna get into the next half of this video.
Jordan 4s or Jordan 1s, Rolexes got more than one. My AP costs 31 millimeters, 41. Looking for one wish on a Ray J thing. I prayed that girl, outrageous thing, but she can't see cause I got shades and tape. You left somebody that you love at the bottom of a mountain 'cause they're afraid to climb it? Have you changed your climate? My uncles had no papers. We sold sweets in school, made sense that the man them grew up and sold flavors. In the fire, been tried, affected the way I've been wired inside. You can hide or glide. I could have been deported. That's the definition of a fight or flight.
So the thing that I really wanted to actually discuss here was just the outrage that I was noticing from kind of like one-off, posts and stuff, mostly on Instagram. So I haven't been on Twitter like that over the last couple like months at this point, maybe even years. But there are a lot of people who had like really strong opinions over this track list, and it's like, well, more specifically, people who had like really strong opinions about there being like no street rappers or whatever on it. And I guess maybe a piece of it might just be because I'm kind of like physically disconnected from the music, obviously like being in America. Maybe that kind of influences why I don't feel as strongly about what kind of artists are or aren't on the project. I think maybe also because I think about things from like a creative standpoint more than anything else. I kind of see those things as an opportunity to have a more dynamic sounding project, like I already said. So when I see artists whose names I don't know, or artists who I wouldn't normally expect to collab with Dave, I'm just like, okay, this is gonna make for an interesting project. Whereas other people see that and they just start losing it. And it's like, I understand the passion, right? At the end of it, because I'm passionate about this too. Like, I love this music, I love talking about the music, but it kind of reaches the point where people need to like zoom out and realize when they're getting really weird. Like, you can love something, you can be passionate about it and not be weird. And more specifically, what I mean is like letting this stuff like really dictate and control your emotions. You can look at it like, oh man, I wish so and so was on there. But to like just to be mad, like actually angry about like who is and isn't on the album, to me, it's just kind of, it's just weird, man. And I don't really have any like specific like post in mind when I say that. It's just kind of like a sentiment that I remember kind of picking up on, like in comments, especially when they first dropped the track list, when Dave officially announced it and they rolled out the campaign with all the features. Like, people were just actually mad, like, oh, no Fredo, no this. I'm just like, we've heard it already. Like, unless it's gonna be something that's new and fresh and bring us something that we haven't already gotten, from a creative standpoint, to me, it's just kind of pointless. Like, if you want that song so bad, listen to the 2, 3, 4, however many other times we've already gotten it. Now, if you want to say you wish that maybe Dave showed a little bit more love to some of the up and coming emerging talent in rap, especially on like the street rap side, then okay, I can hear that a bit more. But even then, it leads into what I said before, and it's another big point that I want to make at some point is that's not who Dave is anymore. That's not his reality anymore. He may be able to speak to those experiences. He might be able to tap into those experiences. But after giving us 2 straight projects of just pain, not entirely, but I want to hear Dave be able to give us something that might be a little more lighthearted, still have that introspection, but a little more lighthearted, a little more fun, a little more just artsy. I think this might be that album that gives him that chance to do that. Like, we've heard Dave and Fredo. Now, it would have been dope to hear Dave and Potter. But again, looking at what might be the potential direction of this project, a Potter feature might have just pulled this maybe a little bit too far out of the element. Like a Gigs feature or something might have pulled this too far out of the element. Like, I don't know who else, maybe like Clavish. I don't know who else like people were expecting to see on this in terms of like street rap. But I don't know if it would have meshed well with what seems like is the essence of what he's trying to get at here. This seems like something that's probably intended to be not lighthearted in the sense of it not taking itself seriously, but maybe just not as heavy as some of the other things. I could be completely wrong, obviously. This is all like predictions and thoughts, but like I said, I understand the passion. Oh yeah, this is the another big point I want to make. Like, if you love an artist so much that their music and the thought of who is and isn't on a project just evokes that much emotion out of you, like, wouldn't you want the best for that artist? And that's one of the things that I think about a lot when it comes to these topics, is you kind of start to tell who actually likes, and this is something that I say in these videos too, like, who likes the artist, who likes the music, who acknowledges the person as a whole human being versus an idea. And I think that people have this idea of Dave and this any artist, and when they start to deviate from the idea and the brand and like this caricature, like this minimized version of like the box that we put them in, they get offended. I don't really get it. I'm not gonna lie. Like if an artist makes something that I don't like, I say, oh well, that wasn't for me, and I move on. I listen to the projects that have what I like. So I don't know, because it's like you can't win, because they stay in the box, they appease you, they give you what you want, and then eventually it's, oh, I've gotten this before. It's like it's eventually gonna reach that point, like where it kind of just feels like you're getting the same thing in a different font. That's something that I say about Potter. Granted, I haven't listened to like the last, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 Potter projects. I haven't been able to hear Thanks for Hating yet. I haven't heard the one with M. Honcho. I feel like he dropped something else as well. But leading up to that, as much as I love Potter's music and I understand why he is who he is to the scene, even to also somebody like Nines, you also need to have a bit of honesty with yourself to be able to realize that they've been giving you the same music in a different font for the last 10 plus years. And I don't want that for artists. And maybe it's because I'm a creative myself in multiple aspects. Like y'all may know me for the YouTube stuff, but I'm like creative in a lot of different aspects. I like being able to say, okay, I've done it this way. What's another way that I can do it? Like, let me push myself, let me challenge myself. And I think that might also be an angle that some people, as an audience member, you may not understand about creatives, is that like it can be a very like depressing life to just be stuck in a box. And yeah, it's cool to be able to find something that works and you identify with it and people resonate with it, but after a while you feel physically, spiritually caged in. And if you actually care about the person, wouldn't you not want them to feel those kinds of feelings? So that's how I approach my thoughts and my opinions when it comes to art. Like, allow artists to be able to do new things. They don't have to be the same person that you were introduced to them as, and they shouldn't be. Dave should not still sound like the person that he sounded like when he dropped his first album however many years ago. It had to be at least, if We're All Alone in This Together was, 4 years ago now? It has to have been at least maybe 8 years probably since his debut. If he sounded like the same person, that would be concerning to me. So like, yeah, that's just how I feel. What else did I have to say here? Like, yeah, like why don't you want artists to grow up? Why don't you want them to expand? Why don't you want them to explore new facets and dimensions of who they are? Why can't multiple things about them exist at the same time? And yeah, that's really the only thing I have to say about this. I don't understand why people don't understand. And as somebody who listens to music, I don't feel that way about artists. Like, I don't get viscerally offended, if that's even how I use visceral in a sentence. I don't get offended by an artist not upholding this idea of them that I have. They're a human. Like, that's the only way for me to put it. They're not gonna be who they were when you heard that last album. Like, why don't you want them to expand? Like, why don't you want them to get new people listening to their music? Why don't you want to hear them explore other things and become a multifaceted artist? Like, why do you want them to stay where they are? And that's something that, it's a question that I'm asking you as somebody, if you feel like that you resonate with the experience of like kind of feeling away when an artist starts to deviate. Like, why do you care that much about this person's life? Like, why are you so angry about this product that they're making for you? Like, you're not entitled to this person upholding, again, this idea that you have of them. They make this what they make because it's a way for them to release and to connect, but you're not entitled to that version of them. I guess on one hand we could say you're a consumer, so you're entitled to want a product, but I think where it starts getting weird to me is again when people start feeling entitled to the product being a certain way or entitled to the person showing up a certain way. I think that's probably the thing that makes me react the way that I do. It feels like an entitlement for the person to show up a certain way. And again, as a creative, I understand you don't always want to show up the way that people may already know you. Like Cristal made this point in a clip that I saw on Instagram about how there are people who were introduced to her through Bang Bang. There were people who were introduced to her through Top Boy, people who were introduced to her through so many other sounds. And all of those things about her are true at the exact same time. So she has all these different audiences who now have multiple things to explore and multiple opportunities to get to know this person from other angles. Yeah, other thing I had in my notes here, like, shouldn't the outlook on life change? Yeah, shouldn't Dave sound differently now than he did from his Black Box and his previous songs? Like, if you're making the kind of money that he does, if you're having the kind of experiences and going the kind of places, meeting the kind of people, doing the kind of things that he does and he continues to do, shouldn't his music reflect that? And then furthermore, wouldn't you at some point eventually kind of start side-eyeing? Like, all right, like you're pushing 30 or you're 30 plus or you're pushing 40. Like, why do you still sound like you're still doing the same things? Like, that was one of the things that I said in the first episode of this series when I was talking about Clips and how I love that Clips album. As a Pusha T fan, I love that album. But as a Pusha T fan, I also have enough honesty with myself to say it's kind of, I don't want to say sad, but it's kind of troubling to hear somebody in their 40s with a son who listens to his music still talking and sounding the way that he did when he was 20, 30 something. It makes good music and all, but it's kind of just like, is this you? Like, are you a loser in real life? Not Pusha T specifically, but like for people who don't change in their music, like what's going on? Like that's not the kind of person I would want to be around in real life. I guess maybe that's also an angle for me too. Like, I don't kind of like isolate artists and like I don't know how to put it. I feel like people kind of position artists, again, I only way I could frame it is as an idea. Like, they exist in this like time and this bubble where nothing else affects them. Time doesn't affect them. They don't age. It's just a product. Would you take a rich person talking about poor people's struggles seriously after a while? Like, would you take somebody who's obviously clearly successful seriously when they're still talking like they're from the gutter, like they're still doing certain things? And if you would take them seriously, I don't know. I'm judging you for real. I'm not gonna lie. I'm high key judging you. But whole other, I guess, topic for a whole other conversation. Same thing I said about J Hus when I was giving my commentary on people's critiques of Beautiful and Brutal Yard. People were feeling like, oh, I want the real J Hus. Like, who are you to say who the real anybody is? You don't live their life, like, outside of the couple minutes of a track that they give you every once in a while, or maybe like they're just under an hour of an album that they give you every once in a while. Like, who's to say that what we're about to get from Dave, or for those of you who've already heard it, like, who's to say that that isn't another angle of who he already is and has been forever, and now he just feels comfortable and safe enough to express that through his music and through these collaborations and maybe even through these new sounds. Like, who are you to decide and determine and say that he has to be a street rapper or he has to uphold street rap? Why can't he be somebody who's come from that experience, who loves those artists, loves that music, but also wants to have fun, also wants to be vulnerable, also wants to be able to just express himself in other ways and through other sounds? Like, those parts of him probably existed outside of the music that you listen to. So again, if you're a fan of this person, like, if you're an actual fan, I think that's what I meant to say, wouldn't you be excited to tap into like these other aspects of this person? Again, just food for thought. So my notes here, I said reference J Hus and how I said people wanted him to stay in their predefined box. Same thing with Dave. I feel like people just want him to stay in that psychodrama box. That's really it. I don't feel like being that dead horse. I'm most likely going to be doing an actual scripted, like, thought out video about this. So if you want this to be a little more polished, like, look out for when I do a more thoughtful, cohesive video about that, because I'm going to be talking about other artists within that conversation too. These are just some of the thoughts that I wanted to get out of my head. I'm looking forward to reacting to the project. I think that it's going to be interesting, because I'm pretty sure it's shorter than all his other projects. It's going to be interesting to hear how all these artists work with his sound, or vice versa, how he works with their sound, or how they create a whole new sound entirely, and just what's going to come of that. I just really do hope that it makes sense. That's something that, for me, we're talking about critiques and entitlement and how audiences and consumers feel. To me, as somebody who creates and who puts a lot of thought into the things that I create, every single little thing, I really just hope that I can make sense of the album art and the title and the direction he took with the production and the songs and all of those things. I really hope that it makes sense. Even though like it doesn't always have to us, I appreciate when it does. Or even at least when the artist explains their mindset behind it, and then everything kind of clicks, even if I didn't get it from listening to it myself. So I'm hoping that either it clicks on its own, or after maybe reading a couple analyses, watching a couple other videos, or doing my own deep dives, that it all kind of starts to make sense at some point. But those are the things that I'm looking forward to the most. Look out for my reaction to it. Frank is going to be joining me. I'm going to try to get that out to you all as soon as I can. But do know, depending on how much we reload it and how much we have to say, those edits can take a while. So we're reacting to it 2 days after the release, because it's going to be on a Saturday. I want to go live on Twitch, so if I do, hopefully you see it. If not, no, I'm going to do my best to get that out to y'all ASAP. But let me know how you feel about the album. If you haven't, if you have already heard it, try not to spoil it. I know some people don't care. There are going to be people who are going to want to just comment and just talk and purposely spoil it. Sure. But no, let me know. Try not to spoil it. Let me know how you feel about the album. How do you rank his albums to date? But also, you know what I really want to know? How do you rank Dave's albums to date? But also, when did you start like listening to him for real? That's something that I'm interested in exploring. I think that's a bit of a case study that I'm gonna include that when I do like my more thorough analysis and breakdown of this whole thing about like artists being in the box. So I think I do want to make like an actual dedicated video that's a little more thought out. So I want to use this as a little bit of a case study. So let me know when you first started listening to Dave, or what your first Dave song was, and then which album or project of his is your favorite.